Why didn't anyone tell me about Pacific Rim? I mean, seriously, apart from all the trailers, reviews, videos about it, and a personal newsletter I subscribe to whose sole purpose is reminding me that Pacific Rim exists, why didn't anyone tell me about Pacific Rim? It's big mechs fighting kaiju monsters. Why didn't the makers of the movie specifically tell me about its existence and how much I might like it? But today, the nonsense ends. Today, I experience the legendary event. Today, I drift with the kaiju brain that is Pacific Rim. Also, I watched it with my good buddy Tempest, and I'll be including clips of that. You can watch the full movie watch along on my Patreon page, patreon.com/prepeat. Link in the description. Thanks. So the movie begins with two very important definitions: kaiju, giant beast, and Jaeger, hunter. And honestly, that is the entire premise of the movie summed up in the first few seconds. Big mechs, big monsters, straight to the point, you know what you're in for. So we're in this future dystopian world of 2020?
Then it all changed.
I mean, I guess 2020 is the year that everything changed. So, in order to combat kaiju monsters that made it through the Breach, a portal between dimensions in the Pacific Ocean, the world worked together, pooled their resources, put aside all their political and cultural differences, and built a bunch of big mechs. Out of every outrageous thing that will happen in this movie, this is legitimately the most unbelievable.
We mourned our dead. Memorialized.
Obama!
But the world didn't just create a bunch of big mechs, no, they created a very unique way for them to be controlled, where you need two Jaeger pilots. One controls the right hemisphere, and one controls the left hemisphere, and because they need to work as efficiently and effectively together as one brain, they undergo a mind fusion process called drifting, where their memories combine and they're inside each other's heads, so they can work as if they were one person. Which then begs the question, if you're going to go through all this trouble to emulate the efficiency of one brain, why not just use one brain by having one pilot? See, they tried to explain it in the movie by saying that the neural link needed between Pilot and Jaeger was just too much for one person to handle, but why? You're the ones making it. Just make it so one person can do it. I mean, why do you even need a neural link in the first place? Can't they be controlled with, like, buttons and maybe motion capture? And then when they do fuse their minds together, they sometimes need to move in perfect sync in order to do stuff, and other times they don't. And one pilot controls one hemisphere of the Jaeger brain, and the other pilot does the other hemisphere of the Jaeger brain. So are they working together as one, or are they acting separately? I don't get it. It doesn't make sense. And right there, I've just committed the cardinal sin of enjoying this movie. I applied logic to it. This movie isn't here for logic or making sense or a watertight narrative. Not when you got shots like this.
Yes.
So, we're in the future dystopian world of 2020. And there's a kaiju threat arising, so we need our heroes to take it down. Cue the brothers Raleigh and Yancey. They're drift compatible, and they pilot one of the Jaegers named
Gipsy Danger.
Now, seems like there might have been some controversy surrounding the name, including some plans from the original screenplay that didn't make it into the movie, thankfully, so I'll just be calling the mech GD from now on. So GD is sent out to take on a Category 3 kaiju called Knifehead. Wonder whose job it is to make up the kaiju names in this world. Like, is someone employed just for that? I hope so. I hope they're having a nice day. We then get our superhero duo suiting up and, well, the music's really good, isn't it? We get introduced to Tendo, whose only character trait is that he slept with someone else's girlfriend. Seems like a great guy. I also just want to highlight this line read because I think it's very funny.
A man's gotta do what a man's gotta do, brother.
Man's gotta do what a man's gotta do, brother. The heroes enter their mech, and we get the first instance of the neural link required to pilot the mech, colloquially called drifting, but officially called
Fair for neural handshake.
a neural handshake? Surely you could have come up with a better name than that. Neural fusion, neural connection, neural something, anything that sounds a little bit better than a polite greeting. I bet the same person who named Knifehead named this too. I hope they're having a bad day. Something I will forever love in this movie, though, is the random lines of dialogue that get thrown out that mean essentially nothing, like, "Adjust the torque!" Adjust the torque! It doesn't mean anything. It's like, change the momentum. Doesn't mean anything. I love it. So GD pilots Raleigh and Yancey head out to kill Knifehead, but they go against direct orders to stay put from their marshal, Idris Elba. I'd tell you the character's name, but I'll be honest, I don't know it. Stacker Pentecost. This movie's brilliant. GD successfully rescues some civilians and takes down Knifehead, featuring a fantastic multiple camera angle replay of a plasma cannon, but their victory is short-lived because Knifehead wasn't actually dead, rises up again, breaks the hull of the Jaeger, and straight up eats Yancey. Not Yancey! He was my favorite person called Yancey. Raleigh just about manages to make it back to shore, piloting the Jaeger by himself, which, again, draws questions about how the neural handshake works. If one pilot controls one hemisphere and one controls the other, how can they pilot it solo? But I'm not going to question it. I'm not going to question it. The title card drops in all its Avengers-adjacent font glory, and we're moved ahead 5 years to 2025. That's this year that this video is being made, and the world is just as united as the movie said we would be. All the countries working together. Things aren't looking too rosy for the Jaeger project, though, because they're being defunded, and instead the global council of people think the solution to the kaiju problem is building a wall. Maybe this movie is actually very accurate. They even have literal signs saying anti-kaiju wall on it. And I'm sorry, but you guys saw how easily Knifehead pierced through the hull of a Jaeger. Do you really think a wall is going to keep out any kaiju at all? This seems like an insane idea. And then immediately, we see that a kaiju breaks through the wall.
Who could have seen it coming? Oh, fuck the wall!
Our former Jaeger pilot main character man Raleigh is now working in wall construction, leaving the piloting life behind him after the death of his brother. But the Jaeger project has one final chance to make history, and Marshal Idris Elba needs his best, so he seeks out Raleigh and tries to make him rejoin the cause. But Raleigh raises a very valid point in saying that he's too traumatized. He was still neurally handshook with his brother when he died. He basically experienced death while still living, and that's pretty harrowing stuff. I can totally see why he wouldn't want to pilot a Jaeger anymore. But Idris Elba makes a very compelling counter-argument.
The world is coming to an end. So where would you rather die? Here? Or in a Jaeger?
Look, I'm sorry your brother died and you experienced it with him, but also have you considered the fact that you could be really cool? I don't know, just something to think about. So of course Raleigh accepts, and they both head off to where all the remaining Jaegers in the world have been shipped to have their last stand, Hong Kong, but specifically their base in Hong Kong, called the Shatterdome. This movie is fucking amazing.
We have the subtitles on for this, and they've just gone to Hong Kong, and the subtitle just said shouting in Japanese. I don't think that's right. No, that's not right!
We get introduced to Mako Mori, responsible for the repair of GD, and tasked with finding Raleigh a co-pilot, as well as the kooky side characters, Kaiju Fanatic Science Man and Grumbly Math Science Man. I do not know either of these characters' names. Okay, so apparently this character is called Dr. Newton Geisler, and this one is just called Gottlieb. Okay. They do their quick stand-up routine and even pause for the audience to laugh. Except I don't, because it isn't funny.
It was 2,500 tons of awesome. We're awful.
But don't worry about all that, because it's time for the Warcock.
War clock.
I thought he said something else. Yep. Idris Elba walks into a room. Warcock! You got it, Idris.
We then get to meet more Jaegers, like Crimson Typhoon, which is piloted by triplets. They use the Thundercloud formation with 3 arms. Look, Look, okay, I really want to get past the whole piloting thing and how it works, but if you tell me you need 2 pilots to control 1 hemisphere each, you can't just then introduce one that has 3 pilots, because what? Is the Jaeger brain split into 3 hemispheres? They say that Crimson Typhoon has 3 arms. So what? You don't control an arm each, you control a hemisphere. I'm so confused. I'm not going to question it. I'm going to move on. I'm going to move on. I won't bring up piloting again. Probably. So alongside Crimson Typhoon, there's also Cherno Alpha and Striker Eureka, the latter being piloted by father and son Hercules and Chuck Hansen. The naming in this movie is A+.
Their watches stayed on breach for 6 years. 6 years.
Do you want to take that line again, Mr. Elba? Sound a bit more enthused? No? Okay. Mr. Elba then informs Raleigh of their plan to nuke the breach itself, destroying it and stopping the kaiju from crossing into our world. Where did you get a nuke from, Mr. Elba? I thought you were being defunded.
See the Russians back there? They can get us anything.
Okay. No further questions.
Vengeance is like an open wound.
No. Follow up. Finish that analogy.
Wait. What do you mean?
Vengeance is like an open wound. How?
The scientists then try to explain their reasoning behind their predictions of the future and what kaiju attacks they can expect next, while also bickering and trying to prove why the other person is wrong. They throw out nonsense lines that would really bring the movie down if you paid attention to them.
And this is what we call the throat, the passage between the breach and us. We know that it's atomic in nature.
How do you know it's atomic in nature? You've just said you've never been able to get through.
These are some samples I collected, all right? They have the same exact DNA.
No, they don't. If all kaiju had the same exact DNA, they would look identical and function identically. There is so much in this movie you just gotta say, okay, sure, and move on.
But it's not going to work.
It is going to work, Herman.
Oh, shit, his name is Herman? Alright. Raleigh and Mako share a moment, and Raleigh asks her why she's just fixing up old Jaegers and showing him around. Surely she's a pilot, right?
What'd your simulator score?
We don't know what this is. He might as well be asking her what rank she is in Overwatch. She tells him she's been studying his combat techniques and strategy from his whole career, and says he's unpredictable. He deviates from standard combat techniques, which often gets people injured and Jaegers damaged, or worse, gets people killed, like his brother, who I must remind you is called Yancey. And Raleigh's response to this is, yeah, well, you know, in combat you make choices and you live with the consequences. Yeah, you're proving a point, dumbass. You make choices and you make the wrong ones, you numpty. Regardless, with their plan in motion of nuking the breach, Raleigh needs a co-pilot with him on GD, and so trials begin to find a suitable partner who is drift compatible. And what better way to determine who will be a compatible co-pilot of a giant Jaeger capable of firing plasma cannons and the most high-tech weaponry on the planet than with some stick fighting? Sure. Makes sense to me.
Remember, it's about compatibility.
He didn't say that. His lips didn't move.
Yeah.
That's ADR. You can't fucking fool me.
Mako isn't allowed to join the potential candidates because Idris Elba won't allow it. But after Raleigh says, I want to fight her, he says, okay, and wouldn't you know it,
We are drift compatible.
but regardless of what Raleigh thinks, Idris Elba won't allow Mako to be his co-pilot. And why not, Mr. Elba?
Because I said so, Mr. Beckett.
Oh. Okay, well, clears that up, I guess. Except, just a couple of hours later, he actually says that it's totally okay for Mako to be the co-pilot. So she joins Raleigh for a test run in GD. But why are you allowing her to join now, Idris Elba? Why the change of heart?
Because I said so, Mr. Beckett.
Oh. Okay, well, clears that up, I guess.
Have you been watching this man's door?
Incredible.
Since last night? This girl is down horrendous.
She really is.
He is melting her brain with his riz. And it's not even an impressive riz.
It's not even good riz.
He's just a white guy that can, you know what, if you could power a giant robot, you know what, maybe you got some riz.
It's time for a test drive in GD with Raleigh and Mako, and once again, I'd like to highlight that the music is pretty bloody good. But considering this is Mako's first proper time in a Jaeger, the simulator score doesn't apply here anymore, Raleigh has some advice for her, and it's really simple.
Remember, don't chase the rabbit. Random access brain impulse triggers, memories. Just let them flow, don't latch on. Tune them out, stay in the drift. The drift is silence.
I want one time for them to like link minds and immediately be like, you shat your pants in high school.
But oh no, she does chase the rabbit. Probably because you gave her too many pieces of advice, Raleigh. Mako gets lost in her own memory, seemingly of when she lost her parents to a kaiju attack, which by the way, this kaiju is awesome and he looks like a crab. But because she's lost in her memory, she starts reenacting inside the Jaeger, putting everyone else in danger. So they need to cut the power to GD. Try the failsafe, guys!
Failsafe not responding!
Now, I hate to be that guy, but if your failsafe fails, so much of a failsafe is it? But they manage to sort it out and no one gets hurt. But damage is done to Mako's reputation because it seems like she isn't fit to be a pilot after all. Meanwhile, because he got snubbed earlier when Idris Elba sided with the other scientist, Newton sets out to prove his theory about kaiju. How? By initiating a neural handshake with a piece of kaiju brain, despite all warnings to the contrary. Of course, the mental load placed upon him is too big, and he has to be saved by the other scientist. He reports it to Idris Elba.
Newton created a neural bridge from garbage and drifted with a kaiju.
Which is very funny, and says,
I found him prone.
No, you didn't. You found him sitting up, like this. Why are you lying, Herman? It's honestly wild that I know these characters' names now. After seeing what he saw while he drifted with the kaiju, Newton explains that these kaiju are created by another being. These beings are colonizers. They come and claim control of planets, and they had a trial run millennia ago, which was the dinosaurs, but they waited until they could come and reclaim Earth safely after we'd practically terraformed it for them with the pollution we've done. Alright, yeah, sure, why not? But obviously Newton is a bit spent after getting hand shook with the kaiju, so naturally Idris Elba says,
Newton, I need you to do it again. I need more information.
But they can't do it again until they get another kaiju brain, but luckily, Idris Elba knows a guy. And now, it's time to include the best character in the movie, and it's not even close. Idris Elba tells Newton to find a guy who deals with black market kaiju harvesting. So Newton heads out to the bone slums.
Bone!
He gets offered bone powder.
Bone!
Before finally meeting the right guy. Please welcome to the stage, Hannibal Chow.
Yes! Yes!
I like the name. I took it from my favorite historical character in my second favorite Szechuan restaurant in Brooklyn.
Look at his little flippy knife with all the camera cuts. It's brilliant. He's brilliant. I love him. And this is why this movie is so bloody fantastic, because it knows it's being insane and it just decides, screw it. We're going to put all the ridiculous things we can think of into one man, and his name is Hannibal Chow.
Are you funning me, son?
How can you watch that and not have a good time? Back at the Shatterdome, Idris Elba takes Mako off the mission because she chased the rabbit and put everyone in danger. But Raleigh's not having it. He knows the real reason Idris Elba is so protective of Mako. So we go back to Mako's memory, where it's revealed that Idris Elba was the pilot of the Jaeger who saved her, and he doesn't want his adoptive daughter in danger, but he will not stand for Raleigh's argument, even when Raleigh dares to put his hands on Idris Elba to get his point across.
1, don't you ever touch me again. 2, don't you ever touch me again.
I love this movie. Idris Elba's so cool. But wait, there's danger. Kaiju are rising, 2 of them. It's a double event, and their code names are Otachi and Leatherback. Whose job is it to name them? Seriously, there is no consistency. I love it.
How did it scream underwater? How did it scream underwater?
All the Jaegers except GD roll out to try and save the day, and suddenly the music is really, really amazing. They start taking on one of the kaiju, and they struggle a little bit, but they've got Striker Eureka running back up. They just need to get there in time to save Chono Alpha. They're sprinting to get there in time. They just need to hold on when...
Holy freaking biscuits, bro!
That is legitimately one of the coolest shots I've ever seen in any movie ever. Crimson Typhoon and Chono Alpha both get taken down, but there's still Striker Eureka and they're holding on, fighting as best they can. But the kaiju adapt with every fight they take, and this one fires off an EMP blast that fries all the Jaegers and the city's power supply. All the Jaegers are digital, they're sitting ducks. Except for one Jaeger. One Jaeger's analog. It's time for GD, baby! What follows is an extremely fun fight between GD and the kaiju, featuring fun weapons such as... Elbow Rocket! Elbow Rocket, but more importantly, a crane, shipping crates, and a wholly unnecessary amount of plasma cannon shots to take it down. This is the whole point of the movie, and you know what? It's worth the wait. But then Raleigh gets his cool superhero one-liner moment, and...
I think this guy's dead, but... let's check for a pulse. No pulse.
I think you should just stick with the fighting, buddy. And luckily, there is more fighting. Because there's one more kaiju left who's been on the hunt for kaiju drifting scientist man. Newton! Newton, nearly forgot his name for a second there. Because he forged that link with them in the neural handshake, they're now seeking him out, and they nearly do find him in his public bunker. If not for GD catching up and using a boat as a baseball bat, this movie is awesome. During the course of the ensuing brawl, they fight through a building where they hit a Newton's cradle, but super lightly to start it rocking. This movie's so dumb. It's perfect. GD almost has the upper hand in this fight, but uh-oh, this kaiju's got wings, and the reveal is actually pretty cool.
They fly now? They fly now!
GD is stranded up in the atmosphere at this point, and all their weapons are used up, including both of their plasma cannons. Whose fault is that one, Raleigh? Maybe if you hadn't used it all on a very bad one-liner, you might have a fighting chance here. But Mako reveals one final ultimate weapon, a goddamn sword that seems to be incredibly effective that maybe you should have led with. But even though they killed the kaiju, not Otachi or Leatherback, I'm not sure which one's which, they're still 50,000 feet in the air with no parachute. What are they gonna do? Fuck it, we ball is apparently the strategy, and you know what? It works. Newton meets back up with Hannibal. Yes! Hannibal! Now that the kaiju's gone, and he says...
You owe me a kaiju brain.
Why? Why would he owe you a brain? He just called you a moron and then walked away before. He didn't promise you anything. They're going to harvest the kaiju brain for Newton, but there's a complication. The kaiju was pregnant, and the baby immediately tries to go after Hannibal, but thankfully, it stops short, choking itself out on its own umbilical cord. Grim, but alright, that's fine. Hannibal's safe.
Anyway,
This movie sucks. What's the shoe symbolism? Because we had one for Mako and we've got one for Hannibal now. It's got to be a meaning behind the shoes. Come on, we can figure this out.
For sale, baby shoes never worn.
for sale, shoes worn. But he might not be the only death before long, because it's revealed that Idris Elba is dying from radiation poisoning from too many missions inside the old Jaegers. If he has one more mission, he very well might die. But there's two new kaiju approaching through the breach, though this time they're just playing defense, sitting next to it and defending it. But Herman doesn't take this news well. He predicted that it would be a triple event after the double event. How could his predictions be wrong? He needs answers. And so he and Newton decide to drift with the kaiju brain together. I guess they're also drift compatible? I won't question it. Considering the last two kaiju took out two Jaegers and injured one of the pilots in Striker Eureka, the good guys are seriously lacking firepower. So naturally, there's only one thing for it. They need to nuke the breach, and GD are going to be backed up by Striker Eureka featuring pilots Chuck Hansen and Idris Elba. Oh yeah, it is Idris time, and he gives unironically one of the best hype speeches I've heard in a long time.
We have chosen not only to believe in ourselves, but in each other. Today we face the monsters that are at our door and bring the fight to them. Today we are canceling the apocalypse!
Alright, let's fucking go, Idris. Let's fucking kill the kaiju. USA! USA! But how can he partner with Hansen? Surely they're not drift compatible with the... You know, you need to be drift compatible to pilot a Jaeger. Well, the movie actually answers that.
I carry nothing into the drift. No memories, no fear.
Oh, you can do that? Just no thoughts, head empty, and you'll be fine? That feels like the kind of thing that you should be teaching everyone else, but okay, never mind. Let's go, Idris, let's kill the kaiju, USA! Raleigh says he never thought about the future before. Sorry, never thought about the future before.
Never really thought about the future.
In fact, this isn't the only time his accent drops, specifically on the word thought.
Come on, I thought you wanted to be a pilot.
This is not the main character.
He's not.
I don't know anything about him other than his brother died.
Anyway, the good guys are off to blow up the breach, nuke in tow, but oh no, it's a Category 5 kaiju, the first one ever. And you know what? It looks pretty awesome. But their plan is super easy, right? Enter the breach, drop the nuke off, explode it, Bob's your uncle. Except no. The scientists drifted with the kaiju again and discovered their plan won't work, and they need to relay the news.
Don't do it! It's not gonna work! Move, you fascist!
Move, you fascist!
Move, you fascist!
Wow!
That's great.
Never mind, best character.
They tell them that they need to essentially drag a kaiju in with them as the breach reads their DNA for entry. Otherwise, the nuke will just bounce off and detonate at the bottom of the ocean, which would presumably cause untold amounts of destruction to the tectonic plates, fill the entire oceanic ecosystem with radiation for decades to come, and most likely cause a devastating tsunami for the remaining human residents on Earth too. It wouldn't be good, is what I'm trying to say. So naturally, when Striker Eureka takes some damage and they won't be able to make it to the breach, they decide to detonate the nuke where they are to kill the kaiju. But what about the ecosystem and the tsunami? No? I'm sure it'll be fine. They blow themselves up along with the nuke, and Idris Elba is dead. The second best character in the movie, who became the first best character after Hannibal died. So now the best character who's alive is, Newton, I guess?
Move, you fascist!
They've got a backup plan though, because GD is nuclear powered. They can blow up GD and it'd be the same as blowing up a nuke, supposedly. Which sounds pretty dangerous to have that going out on every mission, but what do I know? After some classic kaiju back and forth, GD manages to wrangle their way into the breach, and Raleigh imparts his potentially final words of wisdom.
I can finish this alone. All I have to do is fall. Anyone can fall.
Is that the lesson of the movie? Anyone can fall? Sure. Why not? It might as well be. It's funny, I wrote that line like a couple of months ago when I wrote this script, and then the other day I was getting the London Underground, and I saw this ad, and the tagline for it is anyone can fall. So maybe Pacific Rim is a massive trendsetter.
Oh shit, they're in the kaiju dimension.
Yeah. Dormammu, I've come to bargain.
Raleigh manages to detonate GD, the breach is destroyed while saving Mako and himself in little escape pods, choppers fly overhead to save them, and the back and forth romantic tension between Mako and Raleigh pays off with them not kissing. Huh. I guess they must be saving that for the sequel? I mean, it's so weird that they never made a sequel to this movie. It's so weird. It's such a good one. It'd be perfect for a sequel. I just don't know why they never did it. But the movie's not over, because there's still time for the best mid-credit scene ever. Is it Hannibal? Hannibal!
We can do a sequel!
Where is my goddamn shoe?
Yes!
What is it with this movie? Choose!
Brilliant! 10 out of 10 movie! 10 out of 10.
And that is Pacific Rim. It's absolute nonsense in the best possible way. It knows it's insane and leans into it, and it makes for a highly enjoyable few hours. Of course there's plot holes, of course there's inconsistencies, of course it doesn't always make sense, but who cares when there's shots like this and action like this? Pacific Rim gets a very solid watch with your friends with some beers out of 10. Thanks again to Tempest for joining me for the watch-along. Check out his socials on the screen right now, and you can watch our full watch-along on Patreon, and a special thank you to my Patreon backers, some of whom you can see on the screen now. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.